Hi everybody, I'm here in Los Angeles at my studio and I wanted to share with you a little bit about Cuddle. So today we're going to have our first video tutorial. We're introducing a whole line of them that we're going to be doing. We recently had asked you guys about what you wanted to see from us, and you really wanted some new videos and tutorials and patterns. So we're trying to kick that off. We're getting it started today with just a Cuddle 101 that'll give you some basic information about working with Cuddle and the different types that we have. So I'm Teresa Coates, and I'm the National Educator for Shannon Fabrics. And I travel around the country teaching people how to sew with this fabric at different quilt shops, but no matter how much I try, I cannot get to every quilt shop in the country. So we're going to show you some of this stuff today. Okay, so I work for Shannon Fabrics. We are the makers of Cuddle, which is a microfiber plush, 100% polyester. Okay, one of the questions that I get asked a lot when I'm doing these classes is what's the difference between Cuddle and Minke? And actually, there's a difference, but it's a very subtle one. So Minke is a kind of fabric, and Cuddle is a brand name for the fabric. Okay, so there's a couple of different things that we need to pay attention to. One of them is Cuddle is our brand name for the Minke fabric, and we work really hard to have a good quality fabric. Okay, so we work, and the company as a whole, we try to create fabric that it's strong, it's bright, it's really good quality fabric versus the stuff that you can get cheaper other places. So I want you to make sure that when you're buying Minke that you're looking for the Cuddle brand name. Okay, so today we're going to go through a whole bunch of Cuddles that we have. I have a whole bunch of them here that I'm going to show you. Okay, so let's start it off with the one that you probably know most, and that would be Cuddle 3, and it's our basic Cuddle. So Cuddle 3 is what we call it, and we call it that because it's a 3mm nap. Okay, so the nap is the direction that this fabric goes. You can see if I push it this way, it's nice and smooth. If I push it this way, it goes up. Okay, we call these zebra stripes because sometimes it does this weird thing, but that means that the fabric will all go one direction if you push it. So when we're putting things together, that's something to keep in mind, okay? So we use Cuddle for all sorts of things. We use it for blankets, we use it for strip quilts, we can use it for stuffed animals, all sorts of little projects. One of the things that I really love to use it for is quilt backs, and I have one to show you today. Okay, so this is a quilt back. Let me show you here. So you can see that this has been long-armed, okay, and you can see the nap in it and how beautiful it is when it's quilted. Okay, so we have Cuddle that's available in 60 inches wide, and we have it available in a wide that's a 90-inch wide, which is perfect for those patchwork quilts. So if you haven't backed a quilt with the Cuddle yet, I really do recommend it. It's great. Okay, so Cuddle is the one that most people know. We have more than 100 colors in Cuddle 3. We have a couple dozen in the 90 wide. So we have a really wide selection of those. And then a lot of quilt shops carry quite a few of them to give you a good selection. Okay, so the other thing we have regular Cuddle, then we have printed Cuddle. So this is just one of dozens of prints that we have. Okay, this is our little farm one. Again, you can see the nap and how it works. Okay, so we have lots of different ones. A lot of Cuddle, people think of Cuddle being for children, but it's not actually just for children. We have lots of them that I'll show you that are very useful for adults as well. But we do have a wide variety of prints. So there's child-friendly, very babyish. There's all sorts of different colors, and then there's some that are more masculine, more feminine, that sort of thing. Okay. And if you want to see more of them, you definitely need to check out our website. So we're at shannonfabrics.com, and you can see all the fabrics that we have available. Okay, so recently we came out with a new one called Digitally Printed Cuddle. And so this one we do, and we have a whole bunch of different ones that we're doing. We're releasing a whole bunch more for market too. These is a little bit shorter nap so that it can be digitally printed, but it's beautiful, and you can see it's really nice and sharp. Okay, the other one that you might have worked with before would be Cuddle Dimple. Okay, and Dimple is the one with the dots, and lots of people have used this for a variety of projects. It's really, really good for tag blankets and for little projects that you want to use where it's a little tactile. So if you're doing like blankets for little kids, and it's also really good for if you're doing the little touchy blankets for people that are suffering from Alzheimer's and that sort of thing. Very good for those sort of issues. It's not really recommended so much for quilt backs as it has a 2-way or a 4-way stretch. So unlike regular Cuddle, it'll stretch both ways. So I'll show you this. If I stretch it this way, it'll stretch, and I stretch it this way, it'll stretch. I'll show you on the next one. Regular Cuddle doesn't do that. Okay. All right. So then The next one I want to show you is the Embossed Cuddle. Okay, so this is another same sort of thing where it's got the 3mm nap that's been embossed, and this is done set or sometimes with a cutaway. Okay, they're very, very beautiful. We have a wide variety of this one. This is our hound's check, and it's one of my favorites. Okay, but you can see this one, if I stretch it this way, it doesn't move, and this way it'll stretch. Okay, so that's one of the things about our fabric that's different, is that other Minkies will stretch all 4 ways, and ours only stretches 2 ways, which makes it a lot easier to deal with. Okay, this is another one we've got. This is our Cuddle Fleece, which is really nice, and you can see it's a bit thicker. Okay, this one is great for little robes, jackets, that sort of thing. They work really well for hoodies for kids. Okay, so this is just a smooth one, and you can see it's nice on both sides. Okay. Then we have our Spa Cuddle, and this is one of our Spa Cuddles that it's embossed. Okay, so this one is child's print, and you can see this side is smoother than this side. This would be our front fabric. Okay, and you can see it has a bit of a stretch too. These are great for little blankets. So I actually really love using this, and then using like a little knit binding around the edge, smooth out your corners, and just make yourself a little blanket with the knit binding. It's really cute. Okay, we also have Spa Cuddle. This is Cloud Spa. Okay, that has the little bumps in it, which I've used for make a robe before, and it's really, really nice. So this is a great one to use for that sort of thing, for things you just want to lounge around in the home and be really comfortable. Okay. Okay, this one is Cuddle Fleece. Okay, this one is super soft, and I love this one for blankets. You can see it's really squishy and yummy. Okay, then we have a whole other section that we call Lux Cuddle. And you've probably sewn with our Lux Cuddles before. A lot of times we use them in our quilt kits. So if you've used any of our strip quilts kits, then they always have a little section that has some Lux Cuddle in it. We like it a lot because it has a longer pile, and so it gives a little bit of both visual and texture, like actual texture to it. So they're really great. So one of the ones that we sell a lot of is the Rose Cuddle, and you've probably seen that and used it before. It's very, very popular, and we have a ton of colors in it, which is great. So this one is the Rose Cuddle. This is the Rose Cuddle, and it's in a whole bunch of different colors as well. You can see that it's got the little swirly bits in it. Okay, this is really nice, and we're going to talk later about how I cut this. Okay, this is another one of our Lux Cuddles. This one is our Luna, and it's fairly new. We have a whole variety of these Lux Cuddles that are really great for a variety of different things, including throws and blankets and stuffed animals, pillows, lots of home decor. They're really wonderful for, and we've been releasing a lot of these over the past couple of years. We have a few hundred of them now, and they're really wonderful, and they have a wide variety of uses. So we're going to talk a little bit about cutting those and how we can work with them too. We're going to be having more of our tutorials will be that way. Okay, so this one is the Luna. Okay, then they get a little bit fancier. This one is our Cuddle, that's the Lux Cuddle Ridge. And I really like this one because if you brush it up against the nap, you can see the blue behind it. Okay, so it's kind of fun in that regard. So you can see both the blue and the gray. Okay, and this one is great for stuffed animals and pillows. So then we have some that are frosted, and I'm not sure how well you can see this, but it's really beautiful with the frosted bits on the top here. And this is our Hide. And I love this color. This makes a beautiful blanket. And we're actually going to do a tutorial down the road. We'll do one where we actually are going to make a Lux throw, and I'll show you how to do that and how you just take 2 pieces of Lux and make yourself a beautiful throw out of it. Okay, this is probably the fabric that I'll use. All right, so then we have another one. This is even more frosted. Okay, so this one is beautiful, and it has this lovely periwinkle color behind it that sort of plays up through the way that it's done. Okay. Then they get even more fun. This one is our Llama Cuddle. Okay, this one's really super fun. We use this in a couple of different kits. It's great for adding a little strip of really fun texture to it, and it's not really as difficult to sew as most people think. When we do a project with this, I'll give you some tips on working with it. Really the biggest thing is just pinning a lot, and we have a special pinning technique that works really well that we'll talk about. Okay, and this is the most fun, like the silliest one. I love this one. This is our shaggy cuddle. Okay, and you can see that the nap on this is much longer. So one of the interesting things is our original cuddle. I put this up here for you so you can see it. Okay, so this is the Cuddle 3, and you can see the length of the nap, and this is really just the same. This is also Cuddle, but it's just a much, much longer nap. Okay, so all of these fabrics, we can use them in all sorts of different ways, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we can do with them, but first I want to talk about how we can cut them, because really before we do any projects together, I need you to be able to work with the fabric, and the first thing will be cutting it. So a lot of people want to use just their regular rotary cutter with it, and you can, but I'm going to show you a couple of different techniques that work well depending on the fabric. Okay, so if I were going to cut with my regular cuddle, I'm going to show you this one first. Okay, so this is just our regular standard, the Cuddle 3 that I was showing you. And if I want to cut this, I'm just going to use my rotary cutter. Okay, I'm going to put it on here, and I'm just going to cut it. And you can see it cuts really nicely, and it doesn't leave a whole lot of mess. So when we're cutting with the rotary cutter, you can see it doesn't actually leave a whole lot of mess, which is really great. And so we can actually work with that just fine. I'm going to show you a little tip in just a minute too about how to deal with that cuddle mess even better. Okay, so we're going to cut it with the rotary cutter, totally fine. Okay, so this one we've cut with the rotary, not a lot of mess. Okay, I want to show you with this one, because this is our rose cuddle. Okay, this is the rose cuddle, and it can be a little bit messier. And a lot of people want to just cut it with the rotary cutter because that's what they know. But the rotary cutter will actually cut all of these little fibers. So you can see how many little soft fibers are in here. And if you cut that with the rotary, what's going to happen is all of those fibers get cut. So we've figured out some ways to work with this a little bit better. So one is we cut it from the back side. Okay, so then I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to make a mark. I'm going to use a Sharpie here because it's easier for you to see. But if I were doing this for myself, I'd probably just use a ballpoint. That seems to work really well. Okay, so I have my little line. There's a couple of ways that I can do this. Okay, one of my favorites is using this tool here, which is the Olfa craft knife. Okay, and I really like this one. So what I do, and this is great because it has little snap-off blades. Okay, so I'm just going to push it out enough that I can get to it. I'm going to hold this nice and tight, and I just drag this blade right along here. Okay, and I just take this nice and slow, and you can see it'll just cut that wide open. Okay, and so what happens is all of these little fibers that you can see here are not flying around your sewing room like they would be normally, because we would have cut them off if we'd been using the rotary cutter. All of that would have cut right through. So this little blade actually works super nicely to cut these pieces. Okay, so when I'm working with Lux Cuddle, depending on what I'm doing, I might be doing things like stuffed animals or toys, pillows, that sort of thing. Depending on what I'm doing, I'm going to cut it different ways. Okay, so today I'm working on a little narwhal. Okay, this is a little pattern from Funky Friends Factory, and I've got most of it cut out, and I'm going to show you this is how I deal with it when I'm working with the Lux Cuddles. Okay, so I've got a bunch of my pieces cut out, and you can see my board's real messy, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut these pieces out, and I'm going to pile them up in one corner so it's all out of my way, basically. Okay, and then I'm going to cut it. Okay, I'm missing one piece here. Where did it go? Okay. So this piece I've got is just my regular cuddle, and I'm going to cut this one with the rotary cutter. Okay, there we go. Here's my rotary. I lost it. There it is. All right, so if I use my rotary cutter, and this is the one I like because I can't accidentally leave it open. Okay, so a lot of times when people are doing this in class, they will leave their blades open, and that's really dangerous. So I like this one because I can squeeze it and keep it open while I'm using it, but as soon as I let go, it does this. And I can't drop it and have it hurt my foot either, which definitely happens. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this with the rotary and show you how easy that actually is. Okay. So you can see that that'll cut it really nicely. One of the things when you're working with Cuddle is to make sure that you are using a fresh blade. Okay, a lot of times people don't want to replace their blades, and honestly, replacing your blade often is a really good idea. It's a small investment, and it will make all of this cutting so much easier. It will also make it so that when you're cutting, you're not shoving the Cuddle dust into the board, because sometimes that will happen, okay, especially if you're using a old blade. So you can also just use scissors, and scissors work perfectly fine as well, okay. So you can see either of these ways are not very messy with the Cuddle, because the Cuddle doesn't actually have a lot of mess. And it's a nicer, longer nap, so it can, or thicker nap, so you can actually clean it up pretty easily. Once I've done this, I'll cut the rest of this piece. And I'm going to finish cutting this piece because I want to show you how I can do this one. So if I were using the blade with this, it's a little bit harder. You can see the line that I drew with the Sharpie. Okay, and it's a little bit harder to keep the control with the blade with this little guy. So I use these little scissors. They're little Femore scissors that have a short little blade. And I like these guys a lot because they have a really comfortable handle and a short blade. Okay, and what you're doing is you're going to stick this right underneath just the backing fabric, and you're going to cut it. Okay, so this may seem time consuming because you have to do these little cuts, but it actually is much less messy. So you see you have a little bit of mess, and then oftentimes I'll sort of just pull this stuff off to the side, okay? And then I'm gonna push all of my Cuddle up into a corner of my mat, and I'm gonna take a wet rag, and I'm just gonna clean up my mat. Okay, I'm gonna wipe this down, and then I'm gonna take this whole thing, all of my cut pieces, and I'm gonna take it and throw it into the dryer. Now I'm going to let it sit in the dryer for about 10 minutes, and I'm going to let it flip-flop around. The washcloth needs to be wet, and that helps a lot because it helps keep beating the fabric around and knocks off all of that Cuddle dust, and it will just fall into the lint trap. So what I do is I just check my lint trap every couple of minutes. I take out the dust, and then I get all of it out. So when it comes out, it's nice and clean. Okay. So then I'm going to have it all free of all of the Cuddle dust. So now when I'm working on it, it's all free of dust. It's not going to make a big mess around my sewing room. It's not going to be floating in the air. And I know that that's one of the things that people really find frustrating with the fabric, is that sometimes that dust wants to stick around. And so really using that dryer trick will help a lot. You'll still end up having a little bit, but while you're working with it, it won't be a big deal at all. And then once you wash it, it's not going to shed anymore. So that's one of the things that makes our fabric different as well, is that shedding, it ends after it's been washed. It's not going to keep shedding and keep shedding like some of the poorer quality stuff. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about tools. Okay, so what we like to use. So I'm going to get rid of this guy, and I'm going to show you some of the tools that I like. Okay, so when we're working with Cuddle, there are certain tools that I like. I told you I really love my Olfa cutter. Okay, I make sure and get a new blade every time. All right, I've got some good scissors. These are some Kai scissors that I really like, and I have the Femore scissors. Okay, so these are all products that I really like to use for this fabric. Okay, the other thing that you're going to need is you're going to need long flower head pins. Okay, this is really important when you're working with the fabric, because if you're using those small pins with the little silver tips, you're going to end up losing them in the fabric, which is super frustrating. Okay. Oh, and if you guys have questions, please ask them. I'm here. I can answer your questions. All right. So when I use, oh yeah. Will the dryer trick work for Llama? And it sure will, yes. All of the Cuddles, it's particularly good for the Lux Cuddles. And I will actually mix them up. So I used to always separate my Cuddles, so I would just put in the darker ones and I would put in the lighter ones. And you can actually just mix them all up, and they end up beating off all of the Cuddle dust into the dryer. So yeah, any of the Cuddles can use that. But make sure that you're using the wet washcloth. That's really important because it helps to knock the dust off, but it also keeps down the static electricity. Okay, so the pins that I use, these are the pins that I use. They're clover pins. I really love these. These guys have nice, they're very long pins. Okay, so you can see they're a nice long pin, and they will go through the fabric and back up and not get lost. The little silver tipped ones or smaller ball head pins will easily get lost in the fabric, and especially when you're using something like the long Llama Cuddle, it'll totally get lost in there. So we always recommend using a flower head pin so you don't lose the pins in there. Okay. All right, so then the other thing that we recommend are wonder clips. Okay, so wonder clips are one of my favorite tools too, and they're really good for binding, and we'll definitely be talking about that coming up. So that'll be one of the first ones that we do, is a little class on doing the cuddle bindings, because once you figure that out, the world opens up, and it's wonderful. Okay, so wonder clips are great. I also have like a whole big thing of wonder clips because I'm a big fan. So I have a lot of them. You also want to have good polyester thread. So because we're working with a polyester fabric, you're going to want a polyester thread or a poly cotton thread. So we recommend a couple of different ones. We work with superior threads and also with Mettler. And I always recommend just a gray, just a medium gray fabric or medium gray thread. Okay, so this is a little bit darker, but honestly, the gray thread will sort of blend in with anything that you've got, okay, and it hides beautifully in the fabrics, no matter what the colors are, okay. The other thing that you're definitely going to want to make sure that you have that's super duper important is a walking foot, okay. So this one is off my Bernina, okay. If you haven't used a walking foot before, make sure you check out your directions. Okay, this little guy is going to go up over by where your needle comes in, and this is going to work to lift it up as you sew. Okay, we're going to talk about this more because it's really, really important, and it's something that I think not everyone realizes when they work with Cuddle, is that this will make a huge difference in how it works for you. Okay, so then the last thing that I have for you are these needles, and so these are the 90-14 stretch needles, and we recommend these for working with Cuddle for a couple of different reasons. One, the quality of needle is really good. The size is important, so a 90-14 is what we recommend. An 80-12 will work, but a 90-14 is better because it's a little bit thicker and it'll go through all of those layers of fabric. So when you're doing a blanket and you've got the binding, you're going to have a lot of layers of Cuddle plus a little bit of batting in there, and you have a lot to go through, and so that needle needs to be a little bit thicker. Okay, so the 90-14 needle works well for that. We also recommend a stretch because it will have a curved end at the bottom. So when it slides through the knit fabric, it's going to slide through and not create skip stitches. Okay, so very important. So these are the tools that we really recommend for using. Yeah, questions?
Sherry, I would like thread names.
The thread names, the threads that I have here are superior threads and Mettler threads. Yeah, we also have worked with various other ones, but I really do recommend a good poly thread. Poly cotton works too, but 100% is my favorite personally. Yeah, so we have a whole bunch of different stuff. We're going to be doing a lot of sew-alongs as we go, so that's the idea. We'll be coming back in about 3 weeks to do a little class, and we haven't quite determined exactly what it's going to be, so if you have an idea of what you would like to learn first, let us know in the comments. I would love to know what you want to know, and if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. I travel around. We'll be at Quilt Market next week, and releasing some new fabrics. When after that, we'll come back. So on the 28th, I believe it is, we'll be back and we'll answer some more of your questions, and we'll give you a little inside scoop on what the new fabrics are that are coming out. Were there any more questions that we've got? We're good? All right. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.